Hey, what is going on, everybody? This is Coach Coleman, Jesse Coleman, and you are now checking into another episode of Breakthrough Blueprint, the podcast, where we're going to help you tap into your full potential. On today's episode, I am honored, I am humbled, I am blessed that, a gentleman that for a very long time I've looked up to as being in the KW ecosystem and being a part of classes that he taught that it was somebody that I inspired to want to be like on when I became into the teaching world. And I am again humbled and honored that he's taking time out of his day to spend the day with me. And I just want to highlight a few things about this gentleman. First of all, he runs a amazing Facebook group and Zoom called Pivot Shift Ahead, where it's meeting with agents from across the country and out of the country every morning and going through playbooks from Shift and different things like that. And also on top of that, he has his own community that he built called Inspire Coaching, where they do masterminds, they meet up, they do coaching, and they do a lot of amazing things. And one key part that I wanted to highlight, and we'll touch bases on that because this is Breakthrough Blueprint, that check out the number of members in his group. I want you all, for those that's listening, go to YouTube, check it out. But I want you to see the amount of members in his group, and I'm going to highlight what was so special and what's so big about that as we're talking about breakthrough. So, without further ado, Mr. James Shaw. James, how are you?
What's going on, Jesse? Thanks for having me. I appreciate you very much. That was all very nice stuff you said.
It's very important because I don't think people realize that, and then I really realized that as I was prepping to have you on that during that period of time when you first created the Pivot Shift group, it was during the pandemic time.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people struggling just across the board, not just even real estate related or things like that. Like people were just struggling.
Yeah.
And you created an ecosystem, you created a space for people to have that breakthrough to still be able to do what they needed to do to get through those struggles that they have. And now it's grown into an amazing community. When you first started that, was that did you see that it was a gap, that it was a space to be able to provide some value for people? And the second part of that, was it something that helped you get through that time as
Yeah.
well?
The thing that I think both those things are accurate. The When I started we had, I mean, it's on the front end, like the first couple of days as pandemic kind of started here. And I had been in Mazatlan, Mexico, teaching a thing for Keller Williams. They were doing their annual conference. We call it Family Reunion, right? And they were doing theirs for Central America. So I was doing the stuff. I don't speak any Spanish. I'd do it in English. They'd translate. We went back and forth. And then I went upstairs to my room after my first session, flipped on the TV, and it said at the bottom of the screen, Tom Hanks has COVID. And it's like, and I met a lot of people who remember where they were when they found out Tom Hanks had
Yeah.
COVID. And it's like, this is when you took it for real. Like, this is legit, right? If like Tom Hanks can get it, this is legit. I mean, the guy lived on an island by himself and still got it.
Yeah.
So anyway, the that started to hit me at that time, and then within just a few hours, like 12 hours, everything gets canceled. Baseball, NBA season, the hockey season got canceled. The NCAA tournament got canceled. Like stuff is starting to just fall apart, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is not going to look the same. And then they started saying we're going to close borders, and you're not going to be able to get in. And I'm like, well, I've got to get home from Mexico. Like it was all this stuff that was going through my head. And honestly, I got a little nervous, started freaking out, and I immediately went to kind of where thinking about our real estate community and how are you going to show a house? How are you going to list a house? How are you going to get people in your car and drive them around? Like again, you have to go back to ignore everything we know 5 years later, but just go back to in
Right.
that moment about kind of what things were like. And so I thought, you know what, we need a place where we can come together and strategize and mastermind and get our mindset right. And Gary Keller and Jay Papasan had written this book called Shift that came out in 2009 to help agents through a changing market. And I thought, well, that would be a good resource for us to study. So I said, I'll do a call, like a 20-minute or 30-minute little mastermind every morning. And that way we could just again, focus on things we can control and stay positive. Now, in that moment, I had no idea it would become what it became, right? We've got
Right.
120,000 members in the group now. I have that. Thank you for mentioning Inspire Collective, which is my private mastermind. That's a paid group. There's over 1,200 people in that. Like, I didn't know that that's what was going to happen at the time, but I did know that we were going to need a place to get focused and pay attention to the things we could control. And truthfully, I needed it for me. My
Right.
job at the time was coaching Bold, and you know about Bold. I mean, that's where you get
Yeah.
on the airplane, you fly to a city, you get in a room with 120 people, 150 people, and then you get on an airplane, go to the next city, and do it. That wasn't going to happen. So I needed something to keep my mindset positive too, and that's honestly why I started it. And now this is what I do for a living. And it's wild to think about.
Yeah, and that's the reason I wanted to bring that part up, because with talking about having breakthroughs, that you played a major role in a lot of people having breakthroughs, and me included. Like, I remember when you first started doing it, I was sitting at home. Luckily, us and our market, we were still able to work, but
Yeah,
there was a lot of my friends from across the country that couldn't work and didn't know how they were going to feed their families.
that's right.
They were struggling mentally, and you created an environment for people to be able to lean on each other, to be able to grow, and like you said, do that shift. And I think about what Gary Keller says a lot, and it kind of applies to it, where if you want to get better at something, teach a class about it,
Yeah.
or if you want to do the things. And like you said, for you, it helped you get through it while
Mhm.
also simultaneously helping thousands of people. And have you had a chance to take a step back and give yourself, your your a pat on the back, because you've helped so many people?
It took me, Jesse, a long time to understand the impact and how many people we helped. And honestly, it was about Christmas time in 2020, and where I started to realize it, because every day I'd go out to my porch and there'd be like 5 packages. And then
Mhm.
the next day I'd walk out, there'd be 3 more packages. And the next day I walk out, there'd be 5 more. Like, people were sending Christmas gifts to me and to my daughter. She was what, 8 years old, 7 years old back then. To my wife. I just remember that Christmas time. It was like every day there was something. I'm like, this is really impacting people. So no, to be honest with you, I didn't realize it for a long time, and I still sometimes struggle to understand the impact.
Yeah.
I I um I travel a lot to teach things, and most recently I was in Dallas. They had invited me to come out and speak at a thing for a group of real estate offices, and people would come up to me and say, I have been on the call for 5 years and I've never spoken, because it's a mastermind. Like, I'll do some
Yeah.
teaching, but then we open it up for people to share. But you know how this works. It's like when you teach
Yeah.
a class, the same 5 people share all the time, and the others are
Yeah.
just taking notes. And on our calls, we'll have 1,000 people. Literally, we'll fill as an entire Zoom, but we hear from the same 15, 20 people all the time. So that means there's 940, 60, or 960 people I've never heard from on the call. And people will come up though and say, here's what it's done for me. I sold more homes last year than I've ever sold in my life. We had an agent say this morning, she's taken as many listings this month. It's January when we're recording this.
Yeah.
She's taken as many listings this month as she took all last year. And she says, it's because of the things I've learned on the call. So what I'm proud of about that, the call is not about me. I started it and I run the Zoom, but I'm not the person with all the genius. All I did was
Yeah.
come up with the idea and set up the Zoom. But the community is what creates the power. The opportunity comes from people in the community sharing, and then people in the community implementing. So I just happen to be the organizer of that. That's all that is. I'm just the facilitator. But I'm not the idea guy. Like, you don't. There are people you can go and they'll say, "Hey, here's my system. Go buy my system and do step one, step two, step three, step four." I've never been that kind of person. I am the, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing? Okay, how can we learn from each of those people and go run those plays? So anyway, the credit goes to the community for being on and implementing it, and I'm just thankful that they show up.
And I think that's a big thing that played a huge part of it is you gave the space for everybody to be able to share. And that's where that community
Yeah.
really turned into a big thing because you have people that was like you said sharing what they're doing. Hey, this is what I do for open houses. Hey,
Yep.
this is what I do for client events. And it was never a situation where people wanted to gatekeep and not share everything. And it made it where more people wanted to join and be involved in where I remember I've had people come to me like, I'm on this amazing call every morning. You need to be on there, James. I'm like, no, I'm on there. Like you said, there's a lot of people on there, and
Mhm.
a lot of people don't say nothing because I know for me, I'll usually still be in the gym, and I
Yep.
get the alert, get on while I'm still working out. So it's like I'm not at a place where I can say things, but
Right.
I'm like, no, I trust me, I know about it. I've been there
Right.
from the beginning, and it's just again, it's so amazing how you were able to facilitate that space for people to feel free to be willing to open because one thing I know is people will not be free and open if the person that lead person doesn't create a vision where people feel to buy in, and that vision was set from the beginning and people felt bought in to where what we're 5 almost 6 years later and it's kicking just like it did when it first started.
Yeah.
So
I'd say it's
that's a
more. I
great
mean, there's
space.
more people involved now. We went through the beginning, it was really high, then we kind of did like this, but in the past couple of years, as the market's gotten more challenging, I think that more people have gotten in. I mean, we're hitting my Zoom will hold 1,000. I think we were right around 900 today. I don't take attendance or pay a lot of attention to it, but it's very common that we're really close to 1,000. And then we live stream it on Facebook, which I think Jesse is where you watch it. And so then we get another. Sometimes it might be 60, sometimes it might be 200. But then, since it's in Facebook, people go watch the recording. There'll be 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 people who watch the recording every day. And so the impact is it's significant impact. If you think about how many people that is total. You're talking, 3, 4, sometimes 5,000 people who are participating in one single call. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. So and people come in and out as needed. But I do think that if you want to create a space that people can feel like a part of something, it does have to be a safe one. It does have to be one that's encouraging. And I think that's what community is about. Community is really, I think community has to do two things. So if you want to create a community that is healthy and vibrant and people are accomplishing things, you have to do two things. Number one, you have to give people hope. Now that's what we did in the pandemic in the beginning, is that there was just hope that like, okay, I can do this. Here's other people that are struggling like me. And as long as we kind of hang out and chat, get our minds moving, create some ideas, we can get through it. So that's number one. We give people hope. Number two, it community promotes and inspires progress. Because at some point we have to get to work, right? So you
Yeah.
do have to get to work at some point. So we can get hopeful, but we also have to get to work. And so what happens for people is they start to hear sometimes the progress of others and they go, well, I can do that.
Hmm.
Well, I can do that. And then they start to get their own results. So and I think that's what we have done inside of Pivot Shift Ahead is that when you get in there, whether you never get on a call and all you do is go in the Facebook group and do stuff, you're going to get ideas and strategies. You're going to see other people are succeeding, other people are struggling. And if you get on the call, it will amplify that. You will hear it and see it with your eyes and be able to talk about the struggles that people have, the wins people have. You're going to get strategies that people are using. You're going to go implement on your own, and then you're going to get results too.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point of I want yeah, I'll use the word forcing other people to get into action because you're in this environment, you're in this community where people are doing the work. And there was I think it was December, November or December, you had a I don't think it was a competition, but you had where we can get points for every time we do something every day
Yeah.
and we want to try to get to a certain amount of points.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was things that even for me as a coach and stuff, like I still have my real estate business that I'm like, oh shit, I'm not doing this.
Mhm.
Okay, let me get my papers printed out every day. Let me make sure I'm getting my points so I can
Yeah.
be a part of this. So yeah, that is very true. And I love that of a place that creates hope, but Hope only goes so far.
Yeah, you do have to
Now
take
we
an
have to get into action.
You
Yeah.
do. The point system you're talking about came that was for my Inspire Collective group, which is the private mastermind.
Yeah.
And we did a challenge in the fall, and we do a challenge every quarter, but not like it's not like a 75 hard challenge. This is something that you can just kind of gain some momentum in your world. And so we got it from the idea of the point system from an agent in Omaha, Nebraska named Brittany McAllister, who's a member of our mastermind community and is on our calls, and she's a genius. And her daughter spent 9 or 10 months in the NICU. Her daughter was born in May, but was due in August. So her daughter was super early and ended up spending 9 months in the NICU. So she was like, "Hey, I'm going to spend every waking moment I have in the NICU sitting next to my daughter as she's growing and getting healthy, which means the time I spend on work has to be super purposeful and on target." So she created this little system where, if she did so many calls to her database, she got so many points. If she went on a listing appointment, she got so many points. And so she let us use that, and we evolved it a little bit and set this goal of go get 30 points. And even if you don't get 30 and you only get 10, that's better than nothing, right? And stuff like that. So we
Right.
just gave kind of this idea. And it's working for a lot of people that every day they're going to get their 30 points or as close to it as they can. And that comes from this idea of I want you to focus on the day instead of obsessing over the year. If
Mm.
you can focus on what you need to do today instead of obsessing over what you want to accomplish this year, I think you're in a lot better shape. It's the idea of what my friend Brad Stulberg would call a process mindset. He wrote about it in his book, The Practice of Gratitude. He says a process mindset is A, you set a goal, then B, you figure out the steps required to reach the goal, and then C, you forget about the goal and focus on the steps. And I think we talk about that a lot in our community about figure out your steps and then just go do those. And that's
Yeah.
what that point system was about. And it works for a lot of people. I'm glad it helped you too.
Yeah, because one of the young ladies that I coach, she's a part of it. She said, "You're my coach, and you're gonna do this with me." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Okay, perfect. Let's do it." So that is amazing. So let's shift gears a little bit. And as somebody who travels and teaches, you're constantly pouring into others. And this is a selfish question for me because this is something I struggle with. You're constantly pouring into others. You are, as I like to call it, the Tesla charging station for everybody. How do you recharge your battery? What do you do to make sure that you're the best version of yourself so you're able to continuously pour into other people?
When I do like a full day class, I'm spent.
Yeah.
Like I'm wiped out. And by the way, I think that's you should be. It means you went all in to help those people who were there and pour into them. But I am spent. So for me, I like to honestly, I like to go home. I like to spend time with my wife and my daughter, and I will just kind of eliminate anybody else. That's my recharge space. Now, I also take time off, and I think we have to take time off. And so the plan that I follow kind of loosely is one from a coach and a mentor who I respect a lot. And that's Jordan Freed. I know you know Jordan.
Yeah.
And he's a really smart guy. The Chiefs thing is a little much for me, but he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
And um, he teaches this system of what he calls 137, one non-real estate day a week, one 3-day break a month, and one 7-day break a quarter. And it sounds kind of hard when you think about that. I got to take one off day a week, one 3-day break a month, one 7-day break a quarter. But what I found is if I just started to put them in the calendar, then those breaks are happening for me. So we do very little on Sunday. That just is a day, very common day for people to do for their 1-day break. But it could be Tuesday. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Most months have a 3-day break built in, right? January, you have
Yeah.
MLK Day on that Monday. And so we didn't do a pivot call on Monday, and we take that time away and just relaxed as a family and did some fun stuff. We got spring break in the first quarter, right? So we're going to go on a family
Yeah.
trip for spring break. We always do right after school gets out. It's not a full 7 days. So hopefully Jordan doesn't get mad at me, but we take a 4 or 5 day kind of celebrate the end of the school year and get away. Nothing fancy, just get out of town for a little bit, go somewhere for a really long weekend. We'll go on a vacation this summer, and then Thanksgiving week has really been our one in the fourth quarter that, like this year, we just stayed home. We didn't go anywhere for Thanksgiving. We had a small brunch with my mom on Thanksgiving Day, but then those 5 days that she was out of school, we get a full 5 days here for our Thanksgiving break. We just hung out as a family. And so putting that stuff in helps me. I found I got to take time off. When I started the pivot call, I had this thought that I had to be on all of them. And I was doing all sorts of stuff to try to make it work. I might be teaching in California, but my call is at 8 o'clock Eastern. Well, that's 5 a.m. in California. So I'm getting up at 4 Pacific time to go do a call. And by the way, I need to get ready. Like,
Yeah.
right, you're at the gym. I can't be at the gym doing the call because I'm leading the call. And it's like at some point I'm going, why am I doing this? Like, what is the point of that? And so then I trusted our community to start leading the calls. So now we've had people, two agents from Chicago led calls for me last week. Meg Dady and Kristen Jungles are both agents in Chicago
Yeah.
area. And
Yeah.
they led for me last week while I was out of town for something. So empower the community and let them grow up. And you just have to know when you have to take a step back. It's okay to pause and rest. Now, what that requires you to do is that when you're working, you have to be on purpose with purpose. You can't goof around. So when it's work time and you're supposed to be lead generating, then you need to lead generate. But if you don't lead generate when you're supposed to lead generate, then when you're supposed to be taking a break, you obsess over the fact that you didn't lead generate and you don't have any business and you're about to be broke. And so then you have to feel like you have to work all the time. But if you have a steady income of lead or steady flow of leads, you're deepening your pipeline, you've got stuff rolling, you can take a step back, cross your arms, and be like, this is good.
I had to stop myself from laughing because you described me of how I used to be, and I'm just like, oh shit, yeah, that was definitely me of
Well, it's
not
everybody,
doing what
Jeff.
I'm supposed to. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
everybody.
yeah,
Yeah. I do it too,
yeah,
by the way. Yeah.
yeah. It's the thing of when it's time to work, work. That way, when it's time to play, you're playing and you're full on. You're present with your family. You where your feet are, and you're enjoying that time. I love that.
Yep.
What for you with habits, what are some non-negotiable things that like routines that like this is gonna I have to do this for me to be grounded, for me to be rooted. These are my non-negotiables.
One of the first ones is weekly date night with my wife. And by weekly, I loosely mean weekly because it's not always every week, but we probably go on 45 dates a year. And normally it's Wednesday nights. We're recording this on a Thursday. Last night was a Wednesday. We had date night. That's really important. My relationship with her is got to stay strong if we're hanging out. So that's a routine that's important. I like to pick up my daughter from school. I have an almost 13-year-old daughter. So at least twice a week, I like to be the one to pick her up. My travel schedule doesn't always let me. So if I'm home, I like to be the one to pick her up. And then she's in dance 5 days a week. I almost always drive her to and from dance because I want that time to kind of hang out. And she's got a busy schedule. She's the busiest person in the family, right? So she's got a busy schedule. I've got a busy schedule, but I like that time just to hang out. I go in and out of this deal with running. I've run since I was in high school. I ran cross country in high school, and I do better when I'm running 4 to 5 days a week. I know that I'm in a better mental space. I feel better about myself when I'm running 5 days a week than when I don't. So those are some key things. Those are the key relationships and routines that are important to me. And we fall in and out of those, right? Doesn't that happen for everybody? We fall in and out. I think
Yeah,
one challenge sometimes we have is we feel like we have to have all of these things figured out. I only just gave you three.
yeah.
Hang out with my wife, hang out with my daughter, hang out with myself. Those are the three. And if I can do those three things pretty consistently, then I'm going to feel pretty good about myself and the rest will fall into place.
You brought up something, and I was gonna mention that about you being a runner because over the past 5 or 6 years, I've gotten really into the running thing. I've done the Chicago Marathon.
Me too.
Um,
That's a fun race.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. It's one of those things that every few miles you go through a different emotion. You go through a different emotion, and I've been able to use those struggles of running the marathon or that running to help me mentally get into a better space when things get tough. So this is a podcast we can curse, so I'm going to be cursing. You don't have to do that. But in the mindset where shit gets bad, I found out that I rely heavy on running to be very therapeutic. Like we talked about it before we went on, when you asked about the weather, and it is strange that I've been enjoying running in cold weather. I mean, 6 degrees, 7 degrees. I get out there and it does something for me mentally when I'm able to ground myself. So by that being one of your things, I love that. And for my people that's listening, again, we like to give action items. What is something that you can do for yourself that helps you get into the perfect mindset? So that's something I want you to think about too. What excites you? What's something that you enjoy to be able to do that? And you actually just went over. There was another question I wanted to ask, but you explained it perfectly of that work life balance where you putting it on your calendar and you're making sure you're spending the time with the people you want to spend the time with. Mm. When you first
Yep.
started in the real estate, what were some of the struggles? So for the people that's in the real estate industry, what were some of the struggles you had that came about, and how did you break through those things?
Well, I think most of the struggles people have in real estate comes from not having enough leads.
Yeah.
So we've got to make sure we're filling up our leads pipeline. So if I'm talking to a beginner agent, somebody launching their business, the reason they don't have enough leads is because they don't take action on doing the right things that'll bring them leads because they feel like they need to know more before they can do more. And I would say you learn more from doing and failing than not doing at all. So I would recommend that if you're launching the business, you would put a limit on the amount of time you'll spend studying and preparing every day. And then when that time is up, you have to get into action, doing something. I don't care what you do, but you have to do something. And that might be, all right, it's a half hour or it's an hour. And then when that's up, you know what? I'm going to go knock on some doors. I'm going to go do an open house. I'm going to just pick whatever. I don't really care. Well, which one should I do? Whichever one you'll do. It doesn't really matter to me. I talked to a guy named Rico. He lives in Columbia, South Carolina. He was launching his business. He had no business, no listings, no business at all, but he liked open houses. So he gave himself a challenge of doing 100 consecutive open houses in 100 days. And he went
Ooh.
to agents in his office and said, can I do an open house at your listing? And he would even do it at vacant listings. And he would just go every day until that house sold. And then when that house sold, whether he sold it or not, didn't matter. He'd then go do another one. Well, it turned out he did 300 open houses in 300 days.
Wow.
300. That's a lot. I wouldn't do that. That's not
Yeah.
for me, but that was for him. And my point is go find out what's for you. What do you think your lead pipeline would look like if you're a brand new agent? And not even 300, if you did 30 open houses in 30 days or 15 open houses in 15 days, you'd have a decent lead pipeline. Now, fast forward, and he turns around, has his anniversary year, right? Excuse me. In Keller Williams, we start over every year and all that stuff. He has his anniversary, starts fresh, caps in like a month and a half. And the cap means now he doesn't have to pay his broker anymore. That's part of it. He gets to keep his full commission check instead of sharing part of it with his broker. And he does that in like 5 or 6 weeks. I don't remember the exact number. But before, a year prior, he had no business, none. How? Because he chose to get into action. He said, I'm going to limit the amount of learning I'll do. And somebody commented on the Facebook group today. I said, what's the biggest challenge you have in your business? And they said, I'm still new. It's 5 months into the business and I'm still going to classes and reading books. I'm like, you need to stop reading books and going to
Yeah.
classes immediately and start doing something. That's the biggest
So
mistake new people make is they don't get into action immediately.
what are some ways, because I know you've dealt with it because you wore a lot of different hats of people having this mental block. of getting into action. Some people could be fear of rejection. Some people fear of success. We know people that fear the success that come with it. What are some techniques for people or things that help them to self-discover how to break down those barriers?
Well, first is we have to understand how it works. You will never be motivated to do the things you're supposed to do. Motivation is a result, not a reason. So if you're waiting to get motivated, you will never do anything at all. Motivation comes after, not before. So people are like, I'm just nervous. Well, you should be nervous. This is a hard industry. You're helping people buy and sell the most expensive thing they will ever buy and sell, and you will be paid well for it. You better be nervous. If you aren't nervous, I would ask if you even care. So you should be nervous, number one. And then number two, you just have to realize that you'll never feel like doing it. Jesse, you feel like going to the gym all the time when you go? Do you feel like running when it is
N-
22 degrees in Chicago? Do you feel like doing that?
Never.
But when you get done, listen, nothing will make you feel like a superior athlete more than running in cold rain.
Yeah.
When you go
Yeah.
outside and it's like 38, 40, and it's drizzling, and you're running in that, you're like, I'm legit. Like, I'm the Michael Jordan of amateur runners because I'm out here and everybody else is in bed or eating soup. So you feel good, but you didn't feel like going there in the first place. But when you got back, you felt great. That's the same thing here. Nobody wants to call their database or host an open house or knock on a door or do that stuff. But you feel great when you get a lead. You feel great. Actually, the truth is, you don't even need to get a lead to feel great. Let's say that you put out a challenge to your coaching clients and said, every day I want you to go knock on 10 doors. And if you don't knock on 10 doors every day this week, then we're going to send your license back to the state of Illinois and you are going to be out of the business. But the only challenge you gave them was go knock on 10 doors. You didn't tell them to do anything else. You didn't tell them they had to talk to 10 people. You didn't tell them they needed to get 10 leads. You didn't tell them they needed to sell 10 houses. You said you just need to go knock on 10 doors. Man, if that person who's nervous and hadn't gotten into action gets out there and goes and knocks on 10 doors and they're knock on the door and they're like, please don't answer, please don't answer, please don't answer. And they end up knocking on 10 doors. Nobody answers, by the way, any of the doors. They knock on 10 doors, not a single door gets opened. They would actually feel really good. They would be like,
Yeah.
look what I accomplished today. I've never done this before, but I got out there. I put myself out there. I knocked on 10 doors. I didn't die. I'm really proud of myself. That worked. I'm so happy. I think I can go do it again tomorrow. And they go do it again tomorrow. Except this time, just knocking on 10 doors won't satisfy them. They've already proven they can knock on 10 doors. They no longer get satisfied by 10 doors. So now they get excited because one of the 10 doors opened. The person opened the door and they were like, hi, we're doing an open house in the neighborhood. We just wanted to invite you to come by. Okay, thanks. I don't really want to come. Well, can we keep you updated on what's going on in the market? Not really. I'm doing just fine. Thanks. And they close the door and that person feels awesome. Oh my gosh, I talked to somebody and they answered. Now, nothing happened from it. I didn't get a lead. They weren't interested in whatever I was sharing with them, but they answered and I didn't die. So then they go back out again tomorrow. Well, this time they knock on 10 doors and one person answers and isn't interested in anything they have. And they don't get excited by that because they've already experienced that. But two doors actually open this time. And this time, the second door, the person's like, actually, you know what? Yeah, you can add me to your email list. I'd be happy to know what's going on with home values in the neighborhood. You get all excited about that. And you can see where this is going from there. Like the
Yeah.
things that excite you in the beginning won't always excite you down the line, but we have to be willing to take that first step. And it
Yeah.
gets easier as we go.
And that makes me think about running. Of That's why we have mile markers, not only just to let us know where we at, but also to say, "Oh, okay. Oh, I'm at mile 21.
That's right.
I'm almost there. Mile 20." So it's those mile markers to give. So for you all that's listening, what James is saying is you have a goal, yet give yourself mile markers. Give yourself things that you can accomplish and it makes you feel good. The same thing with going to the gym. I know there's some people that I've heard that, and somebody literally posted this on Facebook not too long ago, that I got in the car and I drove past the gym.
Yep,
Tomorrow, I'm going to go and I'm going to pull in the parking lot of the
that's
gym.
right. That's
The
the
next
same
day,
thing
I'm going
we're
to go.
talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just not thinking that you have to hit a home run, but just get on first base. Get on
Man,
first
I would just
base.
be happy if you just, I don't know, even sat in the dugout. If we're going to keep going with that,
Yeah.
the idea is to make progress. I think about my marathons. I've done 6. My first marathon was Disney World, and the goal of my first one was to finish, and I did. It took me 5 hours and 15 minutes. Chicago was my second one. In Chicago, I learned so much from the first one that in Chicago I cut an hour off my time. I went from 5:15 to 4:15. I felt real good about that. The worst part about the Chicago Marathon is the finish. It's coming into Grant Park and on the overpass that gets you
Yep.
into Grant Park. That's the worst part. The rest of that race is flat. It's great, but they have this one little overpass that takes you into Grant Park for the finish that stinks. But 4:15. My next one was San Diego. San Diego, I was on pace to break 4 hours. In fact, I got to mile 20 and I was like right at 3 hours. So I'm like, I'm going to finish this in 4 hours. And instead, it took me like 4:04. Like it just, I just, that last 6 miles really struggled. My next one was Columbus, Ohio, not my favorite town. And
Yeah.
I know, not definitely not yours, not your favorite town at all. Uh, and I ran that one in 3:52:48. Like I was looking for it. I was gaining momentum because I was learning from my experience. Okay, now fast forward, and I'm 47 years old. The days of a sub 4 hour marathon have probably passed me.
Definitely.
I don't know that I could do that again. I'd be real. I'm not going to run one. I'm done. I've done 6, but I think if I trained and really went after it today, I'd be in that 4:05 to 4:10 mark, and I'd be okay with that. I'd be real happy with that. But it's about taking the action and you see progress along the way and having the right perspective about the progress.
Yeah. I love that because that's one of the reasons why I am a big advocate, and my academy do that. Where especially for our kids, where our kids in jujitsu and MMA, we give them stripes on their belt because it does something to them mentally to see that I'm getting better and it's progress, and
Yeah,
just keep going to keep going. So for you all, it's a process. You're not just going to go from getting off the couch to running a full marathon.
that's right.
Yet 1% better, just getting better every time you do it, and then you keep on going.
That's it.
All right. So for you, do you? There's been a common theme over the past few episodes and stuff like that of people journaling, of being able to get things out, release things. Are you a journaler, or what is your way of getting things out of your mind, clearing your thoughts?
I've always struggled, even as a bold coach, I struggled with the journal piece because to sit down and like write out that stuff is just was never my thing. But there are a couple of people, my wife is one, we've got 2 other friends that they're who I walk through things with. I share kind of
Yeah.
what's on my mind, and I ask them for feedback. I've got a coffee appointment with a friend tomorrow where I want her advice on something. I want to borrow her brain on something. So I'll walk through stuff I'm thinking or that's on my mind. I'm a dialogue person. I want to be in a flow with somebody and chatting about things. I've learned to reach out for help more in doing the pivot shift ahead group, our private group, and then I do 2 in-person events every year. Um, I have met a lot of great people, some cool authors and different other thought leaders. And, I have their cell phone numbers because we did stuff with them. So every once in a while, I'll fire a text off. I'm talking like best-selling, like one of these guys is a 7-time New York Times best-selling author. And one day I was like, I wonder if he could help me with this. I fired off a text. Hey, I have a question. Boom, get an answer back. And so, it's not every day, but a couple
Yeah.
times a quarter, I'll fire off a message to him. Hey, I'm thinking this. What do you think? So that's the kind of flow I need to be in. Another one I talked to one time, multiple best-selling author. I texted him one time, and the reply back was, "Do you have a minute? I'll just call you." I ended up talking to this guy for 30 minutes. It was like a $10,000 coaching call I got for free because I was willing to ask for help. And I think that's one
Yeah.
of our superpowers. One of our greatest superpowers is the ability to ask for help. But so many people don't do it. And so for me, I try to engage the thoughts of others, share kind of what I'm thinking, and then get the ideas and thoughts of other people too.
So I heard two key things on that, and the first one is you have that you have you're journaling, but you're doing it with actual people
Hmm.
where you're able to get your thoughts and you're able to get feedback from it, which is amazing. And the second part is something I struggle with so much
What's that?
is asking for help.
Well, ask.
I've been well, this is the first time your first thing here. I reached out to you. Hey, James, could you be a guest on my show? So I'm getting better at it. I'm
Yeah.
getting better at it, and that is one of my struggles. That's why one of the segments I also do for the podcast is in between releasing episodes, I am actually going in my personal journal and I am talking about certain things in my journal to be able to show people that we all don't have it together.
Mm-mm.
We all struggle with things, and that's one of the things that I'm working on is getting better at asking people for help and not feeling like I have to deal with everything personally and by myself.
When we are struggling, we forget that other people struggle too. But if we go out and ask for help, that we get so many ideas. When most people are struggling, they go internal, they retreat, they withdraw. And that's the time you actually need to move forward, lean in. The thing I wish happened more inside of Pivot is I wish people would ask more questions because I know people need help and but they're afraid to ask questions. But I do know that when people do ask questions, they end up getting great ideas.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to ask for help.
Yeah. And we see that when we're teaching, you do it on a bigger scale where all it takes is one person in a room to ask a question and then everybody will chime in like, I was thinking the same thing. That was going to be my question. So it just takes that one person to get comfortable with asking questions and asking for help, and then everybody else follows up behind that.
That's correct.
Yeah. So I want to ask you something about there's a part in the Breakthrough Blueprint workshop that I do where I talk about people having standards that match their goal. So, perfect example: if a person has a goal to lose weight, but their standards is McDonald's and working out once a week, they're
Right.
never going to hit that goal. What is some advice or what are some things that you can share for the people that's listening or watching around making sure their standards match their goals?
Well, the way I would describe it, I learned it again from Jordan Freed, is your willings have to match your wants. What it is you're willing to do and what you want to have happen need to be in alignment. A lot of people, want something that's up here, but are willing to do something that's down here. And until those two things get into alignment, they'll never happen. So we've got to figure that out. Well, how do we do that? Well, I don't know. I think you have to think about what's really important to you. I'd also realize that, or just understand that we usually overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, but underestimate what we could accomplish in 5. And so a lot of us are setting something that really probably should be a 5 year goal, hoping to accomplish it in 1 year. It's never going to happen in that amount of time. So we need to scale it back. My friend John Acuff wrote a book. Do I have it right here? I don't. Called All It Takes Is a Goal. And I'd recommend everybody
Yeah,
read that. It's an easy read. It's a really great book. But he talks about having small goals and medium goals and big goals, um, and start with small ones and create a little bit of momentum. Dial the goal down. You don't have to solve all of the world's problems in 5 minutes. So set a goal though that you can accomplish quickly, and then build it from there. So I think a lot of times, like you might say, you want to have you want to have a bodybuilder's body on a McDonald's diet. Well, if you aren't willing to give up McDonald's, I'm not mad at you for that. Don't if you're not willing to give up McDonald's, that's okay. But then you have to bring down the goal to down here and go, okay, new goal, right? I'm going to go to McDonald's, but this time I'm not going to have no more Big Macs. I'm done with Big Macs at McDonald's,
right.
and I'm just getting a single cheeseburger. I'm just making stuff up. I don't know what we're talking about, but bring it down some and then let it
Yeah,
evolve from there instead of trying to. You aren't going to lose 50 pounds in 5 minutes.
yeah,
So quit
y-
trying to lose 50 pounds in 5 minutes. In fact, I would also suggest losing a certain amount of weight should not be a goal at all because that's something you cannot control. You can't control how much weight you lose, but you can control, did I get up and work out today? I saw a thing from Cory Booker. You know, Cory Booker is. He's a senator from
Yeah,
New Jersey. Okay.
yeah.
And he had posted a thing that he had decided he wanted to run every day for at least 10 minutes until his birthday. I don't know when his birthday is, but it was several months. And just create a streak of 10 minutes a day of running. And I'm like, anybody can do anything for 10 minutes. What if that was your goal? Instead of worrying about a certain amount of weight you wanted to lose or something else, you just said, you know what? I want to start a streak of a minimum of 10 minutes every day of a workout. Now, some days you might work out 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and then there'll be that day that's really busy and you just, it kind of gets away from you, but you're like, nope, 10 minutes. I can do anything for 10 minutes. 10 minutes before I go to bed, you run circles in your dining room. I don't care what you do, but you check, create momentum. Now, eventually, 10 minutes a day won't be enough for you to reach your goal, right? Because what you're willing to do will start to increase to equal what it is that you want. So I'll just allow it to build over time. That'd be my advice.
I love that because I take myself for instance where when I doing 75 hard that it's 10 pages a day, and it went from just doing 10 pages a day where it's like no, I'm increasing my rate of reading got quicker, and it just increases. And I love the point that you made of stop thinking you have to accomplish everything in one day or in one time. And that's one of the things we do when we do business planning clinic, when we talk to people and we do the goal setting to the now, where the first year, depending on where you at, that first year needs to be able to get you out of debt and fund your lifestyle. We're not talking about you getting a Porsche or you move into can't like whatever it is. No, first step is making sure you're getting out of debt, funding your lifestyle. Then you can move on to the next thing. So for you all listening is okay, what is that? And it goes to the one thing book. What is the one thing? What is the first domino do I need to accomplish to be able to hit the goals that I want to hit that I have set for myself in any aspect of your life? Perfect. So you're a Disney guy. I made sure I put on, my Disney hat, my Disney sweater because I knew you was gonna be on. Is that a thing? Is that just like, family time, great
Yeah.
experience, or is that something that puts you in a good mindset? Because I know for me, I am a total different person when it's Disney time. When I'm there, like people would not know that this is the same Jesse that they know because I am
Okay.
just totally different.
We were just there last weekend. We had some friends from Connecticut. Jess Star and her family came
Yeah,
down,
I
and
love her.
yeah, she's great. And so we went and hung out with them. And her Jessica's daughter and my daughter are the same age, so they like to hang out. And honestly, it was funny. We were there for 3 days. We got there Saturday, so we were there Saturday afternoon, all day Sunday, and then half the day Monday, and came home. We didn't even ride any rides until Monday. The One of the days we just walked around Epcot, hung out with some friends, didn't even like get any drinks, just kind of hung out. Next day we literally went to Magic Kingdom, had lunch, and came and left. And went back to Epcot and hung out with our friends, and then on Monday we went to Hollywood Studios and rode some rides. But I just what I appreciate about them is that they have figured out how to exceed an already high expectation. When someone goes to Disney, because of the price you have to pay to go, it's not a cheap place to go. We've got an annual pass. We live in Florida, so it kind of works a little bit out for us. But and I'm 70 miles from Magic Kingdom. But if you look, the expectation is already so elevated that it would be really easy for them to miss the mark.
Yeah.
And they do sometimes, by the way. They will miss the mark. But they do a really good job of trying to make sure they get real close to it. And so we took our associate leadership council, that's in Keller Williams. We've got like this board of directors of agents, and we took them to Disney and did a class with them one time. And what they told us was that their philosophy at Disney was you have to figure out how to go the extra inch, not the extra mile. Most people say the extra mile. They go, the extra mile is complicated and hard. But if you can go the extra inch, in other words, just try at times to do a little bit more than what people expect, then you will win in a big way. And they gave an example of like back in the day, the Magic Kingdom might open at 9, but they'd really open it at 8:55. But the posted time was 9, but they opened at 8:55. They just didn't tell you that. So when the gates opened early, everybody's like, "Oh, look, they let us in early. This is so cool." Well, they already knew they were going to do that. Like that wasn't a spur of the moment decision. That was part of the play. But that's an example of extra inch. That's what I love about them. That's why I like to go. And I look for that stuff. This time I went and I actually noticed, oh, something's up because I saw a little bit more trash than I used to see.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was just an interesting thing, and it could have been the parks were really busy that day, and I just happened to notice stuff. But they do a really good job of coming by and making sure there's not a paper cup or a napkin on the floor, on the ground or something like that. But they'll figure that stuff out, right? They don't do everything perfectly, but they do try to make sure they're doing things the right way, and that's what I appreciate about them.
Yeah. So for y'all that's listening, key point of making sure you're setting high expectations, but you're also delivering on those expectations. Especially for my business owners, you want people to spend top dollar at your establishment or for your brand and things like that, but your service isn't matching. Again, it goes back to the standard and the goals. So make sure your service, make sure everything is aligned with that so people won't have a problem with paying that price. Because I know,
Mhm.
taking my daughter back down there to Disney for a whole week where we're okay paying that price because we know we're gonna get what we're looking for.
That's right.
So I know you have a lot of things going on. Let people know where to find you, especially talk about your Inspire group. I think that is an amazing thing. I think people in the real estate industry in the field, that is a group you need to be in because again, it's the community of people, like-minded individuals that's willing to share the successes they have, mastermind not just business but people that will be there for you through any aspect of your life. And I do want you to highlight that for
Well,
anybody
thank you.
that's listening or watching.
Yeah. My Instagram's the easiest way to keep track of me. James D. Shaw is my Instagram, James D. Shaw. Uh, the free Facebook group that Jesse and I talked about off the top is Pivot Shift Ahead. So if you just go into Facebook, type Pivot Shift Ahead, that's the one that has 120,000 people in it. Thank you for putting that up. So that's where you'll find that. My private mastermind community is called the Inspire Collective, and the website you go to is jamesdshaw.com. Jamesdshaw.com. That's $99 a month. We meet every week, Tuesdays at noon to mastermind. We'll have keynote speakers come in. We do about 40 different playbooks a year so you can implement some of the strategies. Every call is recorded, so you always have access to the recordings and the downloads and all that kind of stuff. And we've got about 1,200 members of that, so it'd be fun for others to come hang out with us too. That's where you can find me. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, definitely. So, for you all that will be watching on YouTube, I will throw the links for both on there for you to check them out. People on Spotify, iTunes, I'll make sure I put it in the description to you so you can check them out. Again, thank you all for rocking with me on another episode of Breakthrough Blueprint, where we help you tap into your full potential. I am Coach Coleman, Jesse Coleman, and I will see you next week.
Fresh